Pete's sake. There's a hole there, isn't there? Yeah, go down below that, yeah. Before I make a start on the electrics, I need to tidy up the hoses on the inside of the van. The leisure battery sits just in front of these, so they need clipping out of the way. In the past, when I was running the standard alternator, I did have a split charge system set up to keep the battery topped up, but that will all need redoing now with the addition of the new larger alternator. My plan is to have this one charged from the new alternator and keep it totally separate from the original van system. That way the original alternator only has to deal with what it was designed for. In the past, when I used to run both off the main alternator, I did occasionally have a few issues, mainly if the leisure battery had been fully drained. I remember once the alternator belt couldn't keep up and completely shredded, so keeping the two systems separate seems like a good idea to me. With everything else going on, it's a good opportunity to improve the earth on this, as before I just ran a lead over to one of the bolts on the driver's seat. This hole in the inner wall should be perfect for mounting an earth stud. This will take the earth strap from the battery, but I can also use it for the aircon system as well. I've searched around in my stash of random cable and come up with this. It seems perfect, it's even got the right crimps on and everything. Right, next up, engine bay. As I said at the beginning of the series, my plan is for the system to be able to work whilst driving and when hooked up at a campsite. And although that sounds pretty simple, there are a few differences to take account of. The main issue I can think of is fan direction. You see, the job of the condenser rad is to lose the heat which has been collected by the system and allow it to disperse into the surrounding air. If you look at any commercial or domestic aircon system, they always blow the air outwards away from the unit, allowing maximum heat dispersal. And when I'm at a campsite running off the mains hookup, that would make perfect sense. But when you're driving along, the last thing you want is the fan blowing outwards, trying to fight the air being blown in by the movement of the van. So my plan is to have the fan reversible and trigger it to switch direction when the ignition is switched on. Although they're not really designed for it, these fans will work to some extent in reverse, so I plan to have the normal direction blowing outwards, so its maximum efficiency is when stationary, and then reverse it for when driving. After all, most of the airflow will be provided by the movement of the van anyway, so the fan's only needed for driving when at slow speeds or in stop-start traffic. So I've got this two-way double pole relay which I can use to reverse the polarity of the fan motor, triggered by the ignition feed. I also want to be able to switch on the fan in case the engine was overheating and needed both fans to cool it down. So the other two relays allow both the aircon system and a manual fan switch to trigger it independently. Getting a switched ignition feed shouldn't be too difficult. The yellow wire in this spare plug up on the bulkhead should do the trick. And I've even found the right connector for it. The fan on the left will take the place of the original radiator fan and be controlled by the temperature switch in the coolant rad, and the other one on the right will be triggered by the aircon system. I'm not sure exactly how strong these fans are, so having a manual override for the second one seems like a good idea in case the engine needs it in hot weather. There's a couple of switches on the dash which are now redundant, so I'll wire the override feed up to there. Right, next job is to connect the new alternator up with the leisure battery, and in an ideal world I would use some 35mm fine stranded battery cable. But that's quite expensive and I've already got this roll of 10mm earth cable, so I figured using 3 lots of this would be just fine. As long as I sleeve it along the van to give it some protection and mark it either end to identify it as a positive cable, then I can't see anything wrong with that. A few cable ties to neaten it all up, and I think that's that job done. So it shouldn't be too long now until I can pressurise the system and see if it all works.